The city was busy as usual, with cars honking and people rushing to their jobs, but inside a small apartment on the edge of town, life felt very different. In that apartment lived a pair of 10-year-old twins, Daniel and Daisy, and their mother, Clara. Their home was not big, just 2 small rooms, but it was filled with the laughter of children and the warm memories of their father, who had passed away a few years earlier. Clara worked very hard after her husband's passing, trying to provide for her children while also being both a mother and father to them. For a long time, she kept a bright smile, hiding her struggles so the twins could still feel safe. But things had changed. Clara had fallen ill, and the sickness was not something she could ignore anymore. At first, it was just tiredness and a little cough. Then she began to feel weaker and weaker, until she could no longer stand for long hours or even go to work. The medicine she needed was expensive, and each day she delayed it, her body grew weaker. She tried to stay strong in front of her children, telling them everything would be fine, but children notice more than adults think. Daniel and Daisy could see how pale their mother looked, how her hands trembled, and how her smile had lost some of its light. The twins loved their mother dearly. They were used to sharing everything: clothes, toys, even school books, but now they shared a heavy worry. Each night, after Clara had gone to bed, they whispered in their small room about how to help her. Daisy, with her soft voice, often said, "We need to do something. Mom can't keep getting weaker." Daniel, who always tried to act older than his age, nodded and agreed, "Yes, but what can we do? We are just kids." Money was the biggest problem. The bills were stacked up on the kitchen table, and the landlord had already come twice, knocking loudly on the door, warning them about rent. Clara tried to hide the conversations, but one evening the twins heard her apologizing and promising to pay soon. The landlord's sharp voice made both children's hearts race. They knew their mother wasn't lying. She wanted to pay, but how could she if she had no job anymore? The next morning, Daniel and Daisy sat quietly on their bed, their little heads full of thoughts. On the shelf above them sat their most treasured toy, a shiny red toy car. It wasn't just any toy. It had belonged to their father, who had given it to them as a gift before he passed away. Every time they looked at it, they remembered his laugh and the way he would play with them, pushing the car across the floor while they giggled. That toy car was their last connection to him, and they had promised each other never to let it go. But now, looking at their mother lying weakly on the couch, the twins knew that promises sometimes had to be broken. Daisy's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the car. "Maybe we could sell it," she whispered. Daniel's eyes widened. "Sell it? But it's the only thing we have left of Dad." Daisy bit her lip, her little hands twisting together. "I know. But what if it can buy the medicine Mom needs? Isn't Mom more important?" There was silence between them. Daniel looked at the toy car, remembering the last day with their father. He could almost hear his voice telling him to take care of Daisy and their mother. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't want to lose his father's gift, but he also couldn't stand to see his mother suffer any longer. Finally, with a shaky breath, he said, "You're right. Mom comes first." The decision was made. The twins carefully lifted the toy car from the shelf and wiped off the dust with an old cloth. They placed it in a small box they had saved from a birthday present. To them, it looked beautiful and precious, as if it belonged in a shop window. Daisy tied the box with a thin piece of ribbon she had saved from school craft day. Together, they held the box like it was treasure, though in their hearts, it felt like they were letting go of treasure. That afternoon, they slipped on their small shoes and told their mother they were going out to play. Clara, too tired to argue, nodded and reminded them to stay close. With the box in hand, Daniel and Daisy walked toward the busy street near the park. They had no idea how to sell something, but they knew people often passed by there, and maybe, just maybe, someone would be interested in buying their toy car. The twins placed the box carefully on the sidewalk and stood beside it. People rushed past them, too busy to stop. A few glanced at them with curious eyes, wondering what two children were doing standing so still with a little box, but nobody stopped to ask. Daniel tried to call out softly, "Toy car for sale." His voice was shaky, and he felt nervous. Daisy joined in, her voice even smaller, "Please, toy car for sale." Minutes passed, and their hope began to fade. Some people smiled kindly but kept walking. Others didn't even notice them. Daniel's stomach turned. He didn't know selling something would be this hard. Daisy clutched his arm and whispered, "Maybe nobody wants it?" Daniel wanted to tell her not to worry, but even he felt unsure. Just then, a man stopped a few steps away from them. He was tall, dressed simply, with gentle eyes that looked at them with curiosity. He crouched down so he could see them at their level and smiled warmly. "Hello there," he said softly. "What are you two selling?" His voice was calm, kind, and full of patience, very different from the rushing strangers who had ignored them. Daniel looked at Daisy, then back at the man. He carefully opened the box and showed the toy car inside. "We are selling this, it's special," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Daisy added, "We need to sell it to help our mom. She's sick." The man's smile faded into something gentler, almost sad, as he listened. He looked at the small car in the box, then at the children's hopeful eyes. He didn't laugh, he didn't brush them off. Instead, he leaned closer and asked, "Can you tell me more about your mom?" The twins looked at each other. For the first time that day, they felt like someone truly wanted to hear them. Daniel took a deep breath, ready to explain everything. The man's voice was calm and steady as he waited for the children to answer. Daniel's lips trembled a little, but he spoke bravely. "Our mom is very sick. She can't work anymore, and we don't have enough money for her medicine." He looked down at the toy car in the box, then back at the stranger. "This car is special, but we thought if we sell it, maybe we can buy the medicine." Daisy nodded, her small hands holding tightly to her brother's sleeve. "We don't want to lose Mom. She needs help." Her eyes were full of tears, but she blinked them away quickly, trying to stay strong. The man's heart ached as he listened. He had met many people in his life, but rarely did he see such pure love and courage in children. He studied their little faces, noticing how tired they looked, how much weight they carried on such small shoulders. Slowly, he reached out his hand and touched the box gently. "This car looks important to you. Are you sure you want to sell it?" Daniel swallowed hard. "It was from our dad. He gave it to us before he went away. We love it a lot. But Mom is more important. If selling it helps her, then we have to do it." His voice cracked, but he forced himself to stay strong. The man was quiet for a moment. His eyes softened even more, and then he smiled, though there was sadness in it. "I see. That's very brave of you both. Not many children would make such a big sacrifice." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He took out some money and handed it to Daniel. "I'll buy your car." Daniel's hands shook as he took the money. He had never held that much before. It looked like enough to buy the medicine and maybe even some food. He looked up at the man, unable to speak, and Daisy whispered softly, "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." But then, the man did something unexpected. Instead of taking the toy car, he gently closed the box and pushed it back toward them. "This car belongs to you. Keep it. It carries too many memories to give away. You've already shown me its true value. That's enough." The twins blinked in surprise. Daniel stammered, but we sold it to you." The man chuckled warmly. "Yes, and I paid for it. But I want you to keep it. Think of it as a gift back to you." he winked. Besides, I think your father would want you to hold on to it. Tears welled up in Daisy's eyes, but this time she didn't hide them. She hugged the box tightly against her chest. Daniel felt warmth spread through him, a feeling of relief and gratitude mixed together. They both looked at the man as if he was some kind of angel sent just for them. "Thank you," Daniel whispered again, this time with more strength. The man gave them another smile, stood up, and began to walk away. The twins watched him go, not realizing yet who he really was. To them, he was simply a kind stranger with a heart big enough to notice two children on a busy street. Holding the money carefully, Daniel and Daisy hurried back home. Their mother was lying on the couch, her face pale. She tried to sit up when she saw them, but her body was too weak. "Where have you two been?" she asked gently. Daisy rushed to her side and placed the money in her hands. "Mom, we got this for you. Now you can buy your medicine." Clara's eyes widened. She looked at the money, then at her children. "Where did you get this?" Her voice shook with worry. Daniel quickly explained, his words tumbling out in a rush. "We wanted to help you, Mom. We tried to sell the toy car. A nice man gave us this money and told us to keep the car too. He said you need it more." Clara's eyes filled with tears as she listened. She pulled both of them close and hugged them tightly. "Oh my sweet children, you shouldn't have done that. But I'm so proud of you. So proud." Her tears fell freely, not only from sadness but from gratitude for the love her children showed. That night, Clara used the money to buy her medicine. For the first time in weeks, she felt a bit of relief. Her cough eased slightly, and her strength returned little by little. Daniel and Daisy watched her with hopeful eyes, praying the medicine would continue to help. Meanwhile, the man who had stopped to help them did not forget the twins. He kept thinking about their courage and their love for their mother. He wanted to know more, to be sure they would be safe. The next day, he walked quietly through the same neighborhood, looking for their small apartment. It didn't take long for him to find it. He saw Daniel and Daisy playing quietly outside with their toy car, as if it had suddenly become more precious than ever. They spotted him and ran up quickly, their faces bright with joy. "It's you!" Daisy exclaimed. Clara, hearing the excitement, came to the doorway. She was surprised to see the man standing there, but she smiled politely. "Hello," she said, her voice still weak. "Are you the one who helped my children?" The man nodded softly. "Yes. They told me about your situation. I just wanted to check if you're okay." Clara's eyes filled again with tears. "You didn't have to do that. You've already done enough." But the man shook his head. "No. What your children did touched me deeply. They were willing to give up something so precious just to help you. That kind of love is rare. I want to make sure you get the help you need." Daniel and Daisy looked up at him with wide eyes. "Sir," Daniel asked shyly, "why are you being so kind to us?" The man crouched down again, looking at them both. His smile was warm, his eyes shining with honesty. "Because sometimes, when life feels heavy, we all need someone to stand by us. You were ready to sacrifice for your mother. Now let me do something for you." The twins didn't know what to say. They only knew that this stranger wasn't just kind, he felt like someone who understood them. Clara tried to speak, but emotion caught in her throat. All she could whisper was, "Thank you." The man simply nodded, keeping his plans to himself. He didn't tell them who he was, or how much he could really do. For now, he only wanted them to feel safe, to know that help had arrived. That night, the twins lay in their small bed, whispering to each other again. But this time, their voices were lighter, filled with hope. "Do you think everything will be okay now?" Daisy asked. Daniel, clutching the toy car close, nodded. "Yes. I think it will. They didn't know how right he was. Because the man who had stopped to buy their toy car was not just any stranger. He was someone whose kindness had touched many before, and now, he was ready to change their lives in ways they could never imagine. The next morning was brighter than usual. A soft breeze passed through the thin curtains of the small apartment, and for the first time in weeks, Clara felt strong enough to sit by the window. She held a cup of tea in her trembling hands, grateful for the slight relief the medicine had given her. Daniel and Daisy sat on the floor, playing gently with their toy car, but their eyes kept moving to their mother as if to make sure she was really improving. Even though the medicine had helped, the children knew it wasn't enough. The sickness was still there, and the bills hadn't gone away. Deep inside, they worried what would happen once the money ran out. But before they could sink into those thoughts, there was a knock at the door. Daniel hurried to open it, and to his surprise, the same man who had helped them stood outside. His gentle smile was the same, and he carried a small bag in one hand. Daisy's face lit up instantly. "You came back," she said, running to the door. Clara slowly stood, leaning against the wall for balance. She looked at the man with kind eyes. "Sir, you've already helped us so much. Please, you don't have to come again." The man stepped inside with a humble nod. "I wanted to check how you are doing. And I brought a few things." He handed the bag to Clara. Inside were fresh groceries, fruits, and even some warm bread. Clara's hands shook as she touched the food. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Why would you do this for us?" The man sat down on the worn-out chair near the window. He looked at Clara, then at the children. "Because your children reminded me of something very important. They reminded me that love is the strongest thing in the world. I want to make sure that love doesn't go unanswered." The twins sat close to him, their curious eyes studying his face. Daniel asked quietly, "What's your name, sir?" The man hesitated for a moment, then answered simply, "My name is Keanu." He didn't add his last name. He didn't want them to see him as someone famous, only as a friend. Daisy repeated the name softly, as if trying to remember it forever. "Keanu, that's a nice name." For the next hour, they talked. Keanu listened as Clara shared her story, how she had worked in a small cafe after her husband passed, how she had tried to stay strong for her children, and how the illness had taken away her ability to keep working. She admitted she often felt like she was failing as a mother. Keanu leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "You haven't failed. Look at your children. They are kind, brave, and full of love. That comes from you. You gave them that." Clara's eyes filled again, but this time with something warmer, hope. She smiled faintly, her pale cheeks glowing with gratitude. Before leaving, Keanu promised to come back the next day to check on them. The twins walked him to the door, waving eagerly. "Goodbye, Keanu," Daisy called. Daniel added, "Thank you for helping us." After he left, the children ran to their mother, hugging her tightly. For the first time in months, the air in the small apartment felt lighter. Clara whispered to herself, "Maybe everything will be okay after all." The following days became brighter for the family. Keanu visited often, sometimes with food, sometimes with small gifts for the children, but most of all with kindness that made their hearts feel safe. He would sit on the floor with Daniel and Daisy, helping them push the toy car across the room, laughing as if he were just another friend. The twins adored him. To them, he wasn't a stranger anymore, he was someone who cared. Clara noticed the change in her children. They smiled more, laughed more, and even their worries seemed to fade whenever Keanu was around. One evening, she asked him softly, "Why us? You must have so many things to do, yet you spend your time here with my family." Keanu looked at her with steady eyes. "Because I know what it feels like to be alone, to struggle, and to think no one sees your pain." And because I believe small acts of kindness can change everything. Clara didn't know how to answer. She only nodded, her heart full of silent gratitude. One afternoon, when Keanu visited again, he noticed the pile of unpaid bills on the table. He didn't say anything then, but later, when Clara wasn't looking, he slipped out of the apartment and made a quiet promise to himself. He was going to take care of it. He had the means, and he couldn't bear to see the family suffer any longer. That night, Daniel and Daisy went to bed talking excitedly about their new friend. "He's like a hero," Daisy whispered under the blanket. Daniel held the toy car close and nodded. "Yes, but he's different from the heroes in stories. He's real." Neither of them knew just how true those words were. The next morning, Clara opened the door to find the landlord standing there again. Her heart sank, expecting another demand for rent. But instead, the landlord's face looked puzzled. "Mrs. Clara," he said, holding a slip of paper, "your rent has been paid. Not just this month, but the next few months too." "All of it?" Clara's mouth opened in shock. "What? Who paid it?" The landlord shrugged. "I don't know. It was taken care of quietly. Someone must really care about you." As he left, Clara closed the door slowly, her hands trembling. She sat down on the couch, her mind racing. Could it be Keanu? She didn't want to assume, but her heart told her it had to be him. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief. When Keanu arrived later that day, Daniel ran to him with his usual excitement. Clara looked at him with eyes that seemed to see right through his silence. She didn't ask directly, but she whispered softly, "Thank you." Keanu only smiled and said, "Sometimes life gives us a chance to help. I'm just glad I could." Over the next few weeks, Clara's health improved slowly. The medicine, the food, and the peace of mind from knowing their rent was paid gave her strength she thought she had lost forever. The twins grew happier each day, playing more, laughing more, and even doing better in school. Keanu kept visiting, and with each visit, the bond between them grew deeper. He wasn't just a stranger anymore, he was like family. Daniel and Daisy often told him stories about their father, about their school, and about their dreams. They wanted to be doctors one day, to help people like their mom. Keanu listened with care, encouraging them to dream even bigger. One evening, as the sun set, Keanu sat with Clara by the window while the children played nearby. The golden light filled the room, making everything glow softly. Clara turned to him and said, "I don't know why you chose to help us, but please know this: you've given my children hope again. And that means more than anything." Keanu looked at her with kindness in his eyes. "It wasn't just me. It was your children. Their love for you is what started this. I only followed their example." Clara's heart swelled with emotion. She realized that sometimes, even in the darkest times, life could bring unexpected angels. And for her family, that angel had appeared on an ordinary day, when two children stood on a street corner with a toy car. What none of them knew yet was that the story was only beginning. The kindness that had started with a simple act was about to grow into something much larger, something that would change their lives in ways they could not even imagine. The days passed quietly, yet inside that small apartment, life began to change in ways the family had not thought possible. Clara could now walk a little more each morning, her cough lighter than before. She still tired quickly, but she felt stronger because she didn't have to worry about food or rent anymore. Daniel and Daisy noticed the difference too. They saw her smile more often, and when she smiled, it felt like the whole room lit up. Keanu continued to visit. Each time he arrived, the children rushed to greet him, holding his hands, pulling him inside as if he belonged there. Sometimes he came with bags of groceries, other times with books or small toys for the twins. But often, he simply came to spend time with them, to sit on the floor and play with the toy car, to listen to their stories, or to talk gently with Clara while she rested. One afternoon, Daniel asked him, "Why do you care so much about us? You don't even know us." Keanu smiled softly. "Sometimes, you don't need to know someone for a long time to care about them. Sometimes, your heart just tells you it's the right thing to do." Daisy, with her innocent eyes, looked up at him and said, "You're like family now." Her words touched him deeply. He nodded and whispered, "And you are like family to me too." But Keanu's heart was heavy with one thought. He knew the family needed more than groceries and rent. Clara needed proper treatment, not just small amounts of medicine from the local pharmacy. She needed a doctor, someone who could look after her fully. He didn't want to scare her, but he knew he had to do more. That evening, as Clara poured him a cup of tea, he spoke gently. "Clara, may I ask you something?" She looked up, curious. "Of course. Have you seen a doctor about your illness? A real doctor at a hospital?" Clara lowered her eyes. Her fingers tightened around the cup. "No. I can't afford it. The little medicine I buy helps, but I know it's not enough. Hospitals cost too much. I don't want to be a burden to anyone." Keanu leaned forward, his voice soft but firm. "You're not a burden. You're a mother raising two amazing children. You deserve care. Let me help you see a doctor." Clara shook her head quickly. "You've already done so much. I can't accept more." But Keanu's eyes were steady, filled with kindness that could not be argued with. "Please. Think of Daniel and Daisy. They need you. They need their mother healthy and strong. Let me do this for them, if not for yourself." Silence filled the room. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded slowly. "If it's for them, then yes." The very next day, Keanu arranged for a doctor to visit their home. When the doctor arrived, the children watched nervously, holding each other's hands. The doctor checked Clara carefully, asking questions and listening to her breathing. At the end, he gave a long list of medicines and recommended further tests at the hospital. Clara's heart sank at the thought of costs, but Keanu placed his hand gently on hers. "Don't worry. I'll take care of everything." The relief on her face was mixed with disbelief. She didn't know how to thank him, so she simply whispered, "Thank you," over and over, her voice trembling. The weeks that followed were busy. Keanu personally made sure Clara got the tests she needed. He drove the family to the hospital, waiting patiently while the doctors examined her. He stayed by Daniel and Daisy's side, keeping them calm with stories and jokes while their mother was inside. The children clung to him as if he were their shield, and he gladly stood in that role. One day, as they waited in the hospital garden, Daisy looked at him and asked, "Keanu, why are you so nice? Most people don't even notice us." He smiled gently, brushing her hair back from her face. "Because I've learned that kindness matters. Even if the world is busy, we should never be too busy to care. And you two remind me of what's good in this world." Daniel nodded firmly. "When I grow up, I want to be kind like you." Those words warmed Keanu's heart more than he could say. He felt something in that moment, something like family, something real and lasting. Slowly, with treatment, Clara's health began to improve even more. She could walk longer, cook meals again, and even laugh with her children the way she used to. The apartment, once quiet and heavy with worry, now filled with the sounds of laughter and light chatter. But the biggest surprise came one evening. The landlord returned, this time not to demand rent, but to deliver a letter. Clara opened it, her hands trembling. Inside was a note stating that their debts were cleared and that their home was safe for as long as they needed it. Clara covered her mouth in shock, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Keanu, who was sitting quietly on the chair, pretending not to know. She walked over to him slowly, the letter shaking in her hand. This was you, wasn't it? Keanu looked at her gently, not confirming, not denying. What matters is that you and the children are safe now. Clara knelt beside him, tears falling freely. I don't know how to repay you. He shook his head firmly. You don't have to repay me. Just live. Live with love, raise your children, and keep that joy alive. That's more than enough. Daniel and Daisy hugged him tightly from both sides. We'll never forget you, Daniel whispered. Daisy added, you're our hero. Keanu closed his eyes for a moment, his arms wrapping around them. No, little ones. You are the heroes. You were willing to give up something precious for your mother. I only followed your example. That night, as the family sat together eating a warm meal, Clara felt a peace she hadn't known in years. She looked at her children, their smiles wide, their laughter echoing through the room, and she looked at Keanu, who sat quietly, content just to be there. She realized something very deep. Life had been harsh, full of loss and pain, but even in the hardest moments, kindness could appear. And when it did, it had the power to change everything. The twins, too, felt something new in their hearts. They understood that the toy car they once tried to sell had brought them something far greater than money. It had brought them hope, friendship, and the kind of help they never thought would come. But what they didn't know yet was that their journey with Keanu was not over. He had more plans for them, plans that would shock them even more than anything that had happened so far. The weeks turned into months, and the small apartment that once felt heavy with silence now filled with laughter and light. Clara's health continued to improve under the doctor's care, and her strength slowly returned. She could walk outside with her children again, even to the park where they once stood trying to sell the toy car. Each step felt like a gift, and every breath was a blessing. Daniel and Daisy grew brighter too. They were no longer weighed down by fear. Instead, their days were filled with school, games, and dreams. They often spoke about the future. Daniel wanted to become an engineer to build things that would help people, while Daisy dreamed of being a doctor so no mother would ever have to suffer like theirs did. Whenever they shared their dreams, Keanu listened with a smile, encouraging them to believe in themselves. One evening, Keanu visited as usual, carrying a small bag of books for the twins. They sat on the floor, flipping through the colorful pages, their eyes wide with excitement. Clara watched from the couch, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had learned something important. Sometimes, help comes from the most unexpected places, and when it does, it leaves behind a light that never fades. As the children read, Clara spoke softly. Keanu, I don't know if words can ever thank you enough. You've given me back my health, my home, and most importantly, hope for my children. Why did you choose us? Out of all the people in the world, why us? Keanu looked at her with gentle eyes. Because when I first saw your children on that street corner, I saw something rare. I saw love so strong it was willing to sacrifice everything. That kind of love deserves to be protected. It reminded me of my own life, of times when kindness saved me too. Helping you wasn't a choice, it was something my heart told me to do. Clara's eyes filled with tears. She reached out and placed her hand over his. Then I pray your kindness comes back to you 1,000 times more. The twins, curious about their mother's words, looked up. What do you mean, Mom? Daisy asked. Clara smiled through her tears. I mean that sometimes, when we do good, the world finds a way to return that good to us. And Keanu has given us more than we ever imagined. Keanu cleared his throat softly and leaned back, watching the children. He knew it was time to reveal something he had kept quiet until now. There's something you should know, he began gently. Daniel and Daisy looked up at him with wide eyes. Clara tilted her head, unsure of what he meant. I'm not just Keanu, he said slowly. I'm Keanu Reeves. Some people know me as an actor. But here, with you, I'm just a person who wanted to help. The room fell silent. For a moment, the twins didn't understand. Then Daisy gasped. Wait, you mean you're famous? You're in movies? Daniel's mouth dropped open in shock. You're that Keanu Reeves? Keanu chuckled softly at their innocent surprise. Yes. But that doesn't matter. What matters is the bond we share. Fame doesn't change the fact that I care about you. Clara covered her mouth with her hand, stunned. She had never imagined the kind stranger who saved her family was a world-famous actor. But looking at him now, sitting humbly on the floor with her children, she realized something important: his fame didn't matter. His heart did. The children, however, couldn't hide their excitement. They rushed to him, hugging him tightly. You're still our Keanu, Daisy said firmly. Daniel nodded, clutching the toy car in his hand. Yes. It doesn't matter who you are in the world. To us, you're family. Keanu felt a warmth in his heart that words could not describe. He hugged them back, his eyes closing as he whispered, and you are my family too. From that day on, Keanu's visits didn't stop. In fact, they became even more meaningful. He began helping Daniel with math homework, guiding him with patience. He encouraged Daisy to read books about medicine, answering her questions with care. For Clara, he arranged a steady plan for her treatment, ensuring she would never again fear the cost of her health. But beyond the help, he gave them something far greater: his time, his presence, and his love. The family no longer felt alone in the world. They felt seen, valued, and cherished. One afternoon, months later, Daniel and Daisy invited Keanu to the park. They carried the toy car carefully in a small box, the same way they had on the day everything began. When they reached the park, they set it down on the bench between them. Daniel looked at Keanu and said, "This car started everything. We wanted to sell it to save Mom, but instead, it brought us you." Daisy nodded, her eyes shining. "So we want you to keep it now. Not as something to buy, but as a gift from us to you. Because it means family, and you are family." Keanu's throat tightened as he looked at the small toy car. He had never received a gift so meaningful. Slowly, he picked it up and held it close. "This is the most precious gift I've ever been given," he said softly. "I will keep it always, and whenever I see it, I'll remember the love that brought us together." The children beamed, their hearts full of joy. Clara, watching from nearby, felt tears roll down her cheeks. She realized that life had come full circle. The toy car, once a symbol of loss and desperation, had become a symbol of hope and love. As the sun set, painting the sky with shades of gold and pink, the small family sat together on the park bench, Keanu in the middle with Daniel and Daisy leaning against him. Clara sat beside them, her hand resting gently on his arm. They were not connected by blood, but by something deeper: the kind of love that chooses, the kind that heals, the kind that stays. For Daniel and Daisy, the story of the toy car would be one they told for the rest of their lives. They would tell how they tried to sell it to save their mother, how a stranger stopped to listen, and how that stranger became their family. They would tell how kindness from one person can change everything. And for Keanu, the story would remain in his heart as a reminder of the simple truth he had always believed: love and kindness are what make life meaningful. That night, as the stars appeared above, Clara tucked her children into bed with a smile. She whispered to them, "Remember, my loves, the world can be hard sometimes, but there is always goodness if you look for it. And sometimes, goodness finds you."